Hello everyone, welcome to another Animated Friday. I am Pirate Minion Michelle. I apologize that this video is being uploaded late. Unfortunately, there was some issues in regards to the volume, so hopefully we can get this show on the road, mateys, and start to catch up with all the videos that need to be uploaded. And now it should be working. Hopefully it stays that way. So without further ado, let me discuss what needed to be discussed for this particular Animation Friday, and that was Halloween related animated shorts. Now, I believe last year there was something in particular that was sort of related to this topic. However, from my end, I'm going to be addressing some completely different shorts that sort of revolved around this concept of Halloween and pertain to various things that we oftentimes relate to when it comes to Halloween. So, without further ado, let me address the first one and probably the most famous one, and that is the Skeleton Dance. And this was made by Disney and is under the Silly Symphonies. It was made, I believe, in 1929, if I'm not mistaken, and this is one of the more famous Silly Symphony shorts, and I think for good reason, because this one is actually really enjoyable and interesting to watch. But basically the short involves skeletons, hence the title, and they do some dancing, and they also do some other funky stuff as well, and you really do see the creativity and the artistry kind of shine within this particular short, because you really see how the animators really do play with the skeletons, so to speak, and they kind of do some things that are kind of repetitive yet cohesive with them, and then you also see them do some kind of very strange and off the wall kinds of things that you think are rather odd, but I think it ultimately works in regards to what the short's trying to get across, because I think it is trying to be kind of spooky. It's trying to be a little bit intimidating and be a little out of the ordinary. So it only makes sense, and I think at the same time it provides for some interesting entertainment. So if you enjoy in particular the Silly Symphonies, this is definitely one that is definitely worthy of checking out. And I don't really want to give too much away as to what happens in the short, because it is a lot of fun, and it's something that's, I think, enjoyable for children, as well as can be enjoyed by adults as well. The second one that I wanted to mention is the Egyptian Melodies. This one is somewhat similar to the Skeleton Dance in that instead of involving a setting of a sort of graveyard and skeletons and giving you that sort of Halloween setting, it provides an Egyptian setting, and hence we have mummies that sort of come to life and dance, and you also have the images on the walls that sort of come to life and just sort of roam around. And the interesting thing too, unlike the Skeleton Dance where it's just sort of the audience member taking in what's happening, this short also involves a spider who gets into the Egyptian mummy sort of chamber and ultimately ends up witnessing all the kind of chaos and crazy things that end up happening. And so it creates kind of a different dimension there too. So I think that's also something that makes the short rather enjoyable. And I think oftentimes people usually think of, in particular, the Egyptians when it comes to Halloween, especially in the very olden Egyptian times, considering the fact that they did do the process of mummification, and they were often associated with really sort of worshiping the dead and giving the dead kind of this heightened length of respect, in particular if they were of a very high rank. So it only makes sense that this kind of, I think, a short would, at least for me in the eyes, be seen as sort of a Halloween related short, but it's still very cute and interesting, and similar yet different to the skeleton dance, and you'll sort of see this once the shorts kind of presents itself, and it's rather fun to watch, and I think definitely interesting and worthy of recommendation. Third one that I wanted to mention briefly is Flip the Frog. And this particular short's called Spooks. The interesting thing about this particular short is this isn't Disney. Unlike the previous two that I've mentioned, this was actually done by an animator that did work for Disney, but then later quit and started to do his own animation with another company. And his name was Oob Erwix. And basically, if you really look at this short, you really do see the similarities that are there with a Disney short, in particular how the skeletons look, because they have skeletons in particular in this short. And you sort of see how the things that sort of the skeletons do are kind of, off the wall and, sort of goofy and at the same time kind of crazy. So it really keeps that sort of bizarre tone to it as well that the previous Disney shorts do. But this one involves a different plot and obviously different characters. Flip the Frog being the main character here, who gets stuck inside a supposedly, I guess you could say, really haunted house that's really filled with skeletons, and pretty much everything's a skeleton, uh, including a dog. So basically, he sort of tries to eventually get out of that circumstance of being in the haunted house with these skeletons. But you'll see at first how these skeletons are kind of friendly almost. And then one of them kind of turns or takes things to a darker level, or basically kind of, ends up really showing sort of Flip the Frog who he really, I guess, is, so to speak, what his real intentions are. So, it offers that, I guess, extra dimension of trickery that we don't really see within the previous shorts, because the shorts sort of just present to you straight what the characters within the short are ultimately doing. But here there's this extra layer of Flip the Frog sort of being tricked, and you sort of see how the one skeleton in particular turns out to be a little bit more menacing than he appears. So it's rather interesting in that sense, and I think it's rather enjoyable to watch and see sort of the I guess you could say deceiving end of the skeleton sort of being exposed eventually. And you sort of see the really creepy and bizarre things that they sort of do. And at one point, like even in the beginning, there's a point where Flip the Frog is with the skeleton, and basically they're being served food, and basically it's all skeleton and not any meat on the bone or anything. So it really does try to play with you as far as how strange and out there it tries to be. So I think that's what makes the short rather unique, and I think very Halloween, I guess, related, is just the fact that it tries to go beyond the usual and kind of bring out the impossible, so to speak. And the fourth one that I wanted to briefly mention is Hell's Bells, and now this one in particular is a Disney short. Unlike the previous shorts that involve skeletons or mummies, this one involves hell, in particular Satan and his minions, and Satan eventually messes with one of the minions, or at least messes with basically all of them that are sort of involved. But then you sort of see how that ends up sort of biting Satan, and how he ends up, sort of being kind of destroyed in a way. And it's rather interesting because, again, this short is very strange. It's very out there. there's certain parts where I just kind of go, what was the idea behind that? But at the same time, it's what makes it unique and what makes it interesting to watch is just how crazy they kind of go with certain concepts and how they just kind of present that to you. And it's all makes it all the more entertaining and interesting and also engaging, I think, too. So if you take this short for sort of what it is and how it's trying to just be very kind of just out there, you can find, I think, definitely some enjoyment out of it. But that's really ultimately all that I can really say about it without really giving too much away. But it is interesting in that sense of bringing up these concepts, which you really wouldn't think would have been brought up during the time when these shorts were made, like within the 1920s and 30s. Last but certainly not least, though, this one is probably the most, I guess you could say, non crazy or out there of the shorts, and that is The Cat's Out. And basically, it does involve what the title says, a cat is out. In other words, the cat basically can't get back inside the house. And then he kind of ends up sort of getting lost, I guess you could say, and encounters all of these various things that oftentimes we would associate with Halloween, like bats, scarecrow at one point, owls, spiders. So basically, the cat is sort of going through like this haunted sort of surrounding because he is outside and it's supposed to be dark, and he's part of it too is sort of supposed to be like in some wilderness, where there's really nothing, or at least nobody there really. And he goes through all of these scenarios and experiences, and then ultimately sort of ends up back where he was. So in that sense, it's more of like kind of trying to be a sort of adventure short, which I think really works. And I guess that's sort of similar to the Flip the Frog short, that's trying to create some kind of scenario that a character is presented in. In this case, it's the cat. And the other short is Flip the Frog. So you sort of see the similarities that a lot of these shorts were trying to kind of take, I guess, inspiration from or ideas from. And this one in particular, I think, is rather cute and simple, and is not too complex or trying to be too, I think, odd, unlike a lot of the other shorts that I've mentioned before. But yeah, those are ultimately all the shorts that I wanted to address for this Animation Friday. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a pleasant day, week, month, and year. Excuse me. I did a video over a year ago around this time of month, so feel free to check that out, because probably not going to be back until next year, but who knows what our evil twin minion Michelle has in store for me, as well as all the other minions involved on this channel for this month. But if there are any questions, comments, concerns, be more than happy to answer them. But I believe that's all I can say for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you all have a pleasant day, week, month, and year. And I'm going to go off and get a pint, because I probably could need one, considering the fact that it took some time to correct the volume. But until next time, everybody, hopefully next year, bye-bye.